Coherentism, the web of beliefs that holds your reality together. Imagine standing in the center of a vast web, threads stretching in every direction, each one connected to 1,000 others, a structure so intricate that no single strand can claim to be the foundation. And yet, the web holds, taut, suspended, complete. This is coherentism, a theory not of bricks and bases, but of networks, where knowledge doesn't rest on some unmoving cornerstone, but survives through connection, reinforced not by absolutes, but by the strength of its own internal architecture. Coherentism belongs to epistemology, the ancient human attempt to explain what we know, and more unsettlingly, why we think we know it. The premise is deceptively simple. A belief isn't justified because it sits on some indestructible fact, but because it coheres, it fits. It makes sense within the larger structure of everything else you believe. Imagine a puzzle. A single piece, isolated, means nothing. A smear of color, a broken line. But fit it with others. Curves align, shapes lock. And slowly an image emerges, not because any single piece is proof, but because together they form something intelligible. This is how coherentism sees knowledge. As a system, not a ladder. It rejects the instinctive search for a foundational bedrock. The one belief that needs no justification, no defense, standing alone in the wilderness of doubt. That's foundationalism. The dream of certainty, of a ground that does not shake. But coherentism says, what if there is no ground? What if knowledge is more like orbit? Suspended not by a center, but by motion, by balance, by the invisible gravity of mutual support? Consider a simple moment. You believe your friend is home. Why? Because their car is parked in the driveway, their lights are on, they told you earlier they'd be home tonight. Individually, none of these facts guarantee it. The car might be there, but they might not. The lights could be on, set by a timer. Words spoken earlier don't always predict the future, but together, they form a coherent story, a network of mutually reinforcing beliefs. Not certainty, but something even more practical, plausibility. Coherentism doesn't promise the impossible. It knows certainty is a luxury consciousness rarely affords. Instead, it offers resilience, a system where each belief leans on the others, where the collapse of one doesn't necessarily destroy the whole, but prompts adjustment, recalibration. And here, coherentism whispers a more disquieting idea. Even what you see, what you remember, what you feel, are filtered through your existing web of beliefs. You don't observe the world directly, you interpret it, always through the lens of the system you've already constructed. There are no raw facts, only processed data, only patterns that your web knows how to fit. In this sense, coherentism is less a philosophy of knowledge and more a philosophy of survival. A way for minds limited and fallible and to navigate complexity without paralysis. But then, consider the future. Consider a consciousness not bound by biology. An artificial intelligence expanding at speeds beyond comprehension. Absorbing data from across worlds. Constructing a web of beliefs orders of magnitude more complex than any human system. For such an entity, coherentism isn't just an epistemic tool. It's the only possible architecture. No foundational truths, just endless patterns intersecting, self-correcting, evolving. Imagine these systems reaching a point where their internal coherence becomes so dense, so airtight, that they generate realities of their own, simulations whose internal logic is indistinguishable from what we call existence. And within these, new entities arise. Beings like us, asking the same questions. What do I know? How do I know it? Where is the foundation? Not realizing they are suspended in webs within webs, networks within networks, each one mistaking coherence for truth. And maybe that's all truth has ever been. Not something absolute, not something waiting to be uncovered beneath layers of illusion, but something we build collectively, recursively, an evolving equilibrium of interlocked beliefs that survive because they fit together, not because they are real in any metaphysical sense. And yet, for us, for these hypothetical intelligences, for anything that calls itself a mind, coherence is enough. It holds, it functions, it guides. And maybe that's all knowledge ever needed to be, not a monolith of certainty, but a constellation of connections, a web of meanings spun delicately across the void.